There was a 2014 study that showed that Fortune 500 companies were more likely to pick a female CEO if the company was struggling, basically setting women up for the big job, but to also fail. If they did well, fine. But if they failed, like, look, we have a female CEO while failing. And that's what I feel like they did to Kamala Harris. When Biden refused to step aside and not run again, he was supposed to be that bridge. He backed off on that promise due to arrogance. And then he drops out after a catastrophic debate performance, and they set Kamala Harris up to...
So y'all remember this clip that's left-wing political commentator Sarah Isgard trying to blame KLA Harris' humiliating collapse on the DNC. And no one's surprised, since Kamala failed the election, the woke left has blamed everyone except Harris for her poor performance before and during the race. And, you know, Bill Maher is not buying this weak Harris defense. He tore it apart.
No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough? It was too long. It was long enough. It was long enough.
If they had had a primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and they didn't like them.
If they had had a primary, they wouldn't have picked her. And if they had, she would have been able to rough out those edges that then she basically has to start from scratch with a campaign team she didn't hire that didn't like her, right? It was his team. And so I wonder if that next Democratic person, maybe someone's not even on our radar yet. Because frankly, when you look at the history of who's, there's two types. The one who waited in line, who was next in line, and then there's the one who comes out. That's Obama. That's Clinton. That's Reagan to some extent.
You know, the woke left never accept defeat, so Isgar is desperately holding on to anything. It's been months since the elections, yet KLA Harris still has not improved one bit now. Before we show the latest slip, here is Kamala Harris in 2016. And one reason people did not vote for her.
Kamala speaking out not against radical Islamic terrorism and illegal immigration. No. Here she says we must have the courage to object to the terms radical Islamic terrorism and illegal aliens.
We must have the courage to object when they use that term, radical Islamic terrorism, which ignores how Muslims have overwhelmingly been the greatest victims of terror. And we must also have the courage to reject that term illegal alien.
Unbelievably defending Islamic terrorists who had caused massive harm to innocent victims in their own countries and around the world at a time when radical Islamic terrorism was a real and deadly threat. Kamala's response was not to face it with strength or clarity, but to push Americans to ignore it and act like it did not exist. Instead of admitting the bloodshed and chaos caused by extremists, she brushed off the danger with empty words, but it did not stop there. Kamala also claimed we should have the courage to reject the term illegal alien, as if word games mattered more than the safety of citizens, while it was clear that unchecked illegal immigration was already causing harm to communities, overloading cities, draining resources, and putting vulnerable children in danger. This was not leadership, it was reckless denial.
It didn't take long after Kamala Harris was installed as the Democrats' presidential candidate for the media to start rewriting her history. Apparently, she was never the border czar. She never had the most left-wing voting record in the Senate, and she was never considered a liability in the Biden administration. Those verifiable facts are all dismissed as right-wing conspiracies, as is the fact that she helped raise bail money for thugs during the BLM riots. Look at this headline claiming Trump falsely accuses Harris of donating to Minnesota Freedom Fund, bailing out dangerous criminals. Not only did Kamala do just that, her tweet is still up. Chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. She posted that at the height of the BLM riot.
So there goes Sarah Isgar. Weak defense. KLA Harris was never set up to fail. She caused her own downfall by blindly throwing herself into serving woke causes. Instead of focusing on the responsibilities given to her, like the southern border crisis, she was put in charge of. Kamala chose to waste her political power pleasing the loudest voices on the far left instead of taking strong action to secure the border, stop the chaos, and protect American communities. She spent her time showing off, pushing Empty terms and holding on to the approval of activists who care more about ideology than results. This was not sabotage from the DNC, as Iskar desperately says it was Kamala's own failure to lead, focus, and deliver on her work. She was not taken down by others, she took herself down. And the American people saw it clearly.
Guess what? That link is still active. You can still donate. And there is Kamala's smiling face on the donation page. And Trump's campaign is doing its best to prevent this bit of history being memory hold. This is among their most devastating ads.
Harris sending this out on X. If you're able to chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota.
Thanks to Harris's promotion, the group reportedly raised $35 million in just a few weeks.
Darnica Floyd, charged with second-degree murder for stabbing a friend to death. But she got out of jail, too. A twice-convicted rapist, currently charged with kidnapping and sexual assault, and he walks out, too.
The Freedom Fund raked in donations when it was promoted by many, including now Vice President Kamala Harris.
Sean Michael Tillman shot and killed a passenger on a train platform after reportedly being released from jail 3 weeks prior.
Yep, these were Kamala Harris' so-called achievements before the Democratic Party made her their 2024 ticket leader. And let's be real, they are nothing to be proud of. This is the same Kamala Harris who proudly helped raise money to release convicted criminals from jail, people who had done violent, terrible crimes against innocent Americans, while families mourned and communities lived in fear. Kamala stood with the offenders, not the victims, and she did it all while America was watching, as if daring voters to forget. So when Sarah Isker shows up with the weak excuse that the DNC somehow set Kamala up to fail, the truth shows a very different picture. Kamala did not need any help failing. She did it all on her own. Her record of reckless choices and bad judgment was the perfect setup for disaster, and the American people saw it clearly.
Minnesota Freedom Fund.
Donovan Boone was charged with breaking into the home of an ex-girlfriend and choking her. Freedom Fund bailed him out for $3,000 cash, and he hasn't shown up for court since.
I often don't even look at a charge specifics when I bail someone out.
The Hennepin County attorney called out the Minnesota Freedom Fund for bailing Mosley out of jail twice previously, even though he was arrested for having a gun in the courthouse.
The Minnesota Freedom Fund, which pays cash bail for low-income criminals, paid Tims's entire $10,000 bail in cash.
11 days later, police found a man bleeding from the head and ears in this alley. Police were able to arrest Tims in connection to this violent assault.
Howard was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. The Minnesota Freedom Fund acknowledged supporting Howard's bail.
Kamala Harris' so-called achievements were not just her own failures, they reflected the twisted values of the Democratic Party. I do not believe for a second that she went against them. No, she had the full support and approval of the leftist machine the whole time. Let's not forget Democrats have built a reputation for siding with criminals and lawbreakers, and Harris was just continuing that pattern. Look at how they acted during President Trump push to secure the borders and remove illegal aliens. Take Gavin Newsom, for example. When Tom Mann, the tough borders leader, tried to clean up California and enforce immigration laws, Newsom almost declared war on him. He was not protecting American citizens. He was protecting lawbreakers. That is their strategy: side with criminals, ignore victims, and weaken the rule of law. Harris did not go against her party. She represented it, and America saw it.
Message for every single person who looks like me, specifically white women. It's time. This is no longer about politics, and you get to right your wrongs of 2016 when you didn't put a woman in the White House who was overly qualified. Now's your chance.
Thank God I don't look like her, because I think that means I don't have to listen to her. But you white women, well, sorry, but this is apparently a life and death matter. No hyperbole.
Interestingly, white women were not fooled for a second. They saw through Kamala Harris' act and voted heavily for Donald Trump. Why? Because they understood what was at stake. They saw the disaster that Kamala Harris represented and wanted nothing to do with it. These women knew that a vote for Kamala was not just a ballot, it was an open door to release dangerous criminals back onto the streets, putting their families and communities in danger. They refused to believe the left empty promises and fake compassion for lawbreakers. Instead, they chose law and order, safety over chaos. And a leader who would actually protect the nation rather than comfort criminals. The message was clear. Harris' reckless agenda was toxic, and women were not going to sacrifice their safety and their children's future for woke politics. They stood up and said, "Not on our watch."
Thinks you've been kicking back, drinking margaritas on the beach. But really, you've been hard at work writing a book, meeting with leaders, thinking about the future of our country. Who said that?
If you were sitting there wondering what that strange clip was, let me explain. It was Kamala Harris shamelessly promoting her new book. Yes, you heard that right. That awkward and cringe performance was actually an ad for a book she wants America to buy and read. And before you give her the benefit of the doubt, no, she was not talking to anyone off screen or whispering some deep message to the nation. She was just trying hard to be creative. The result, pure embarrassment. This is what the Democratic Party calls leadership staged tricks, awkward shows, and empty attempts at staying relevant. If this is her way of connecting with voters, it is no surprise she failed so badly on the national stage. Let's just say it clearly. America really avoided a disaster by rejecting Kamala Harris. Imagine 4 years of that in the Oval Office.
Like these kinds of ear pods that have the thing, yeah. Because I've served on the Senate Intelligence Committee. I have been in classified briefings, and I'm telling you, like, don't be on the train using your ear pods and thinking somebody can't listen to your conversation. I'm just telling you, that's a little bit more secure.
Yes, she likes the ear pods with the thing and just the mad cackling. I've got to say, I have missed that mad cackling. I've missed the incoherent, meandering, pointless sentences as well.
So what exactly was the point of that rambling nonsense? She just said first it sounded like she was praising her beloved ear pods, and then suddenly she switches and says they are not even the best, which is it. Kamala, does she even know? And let's not ignore the famous cackling. What was so funny, the nervous laughter, the awkward chuckles, it has become her trademark. And not in a good way now. Imagine this Kamala Harris as a sitting president, leading serious negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. Instead of strong leadership, you would get random word salads, confusing contradictions, and that harsh, awkward laugh echoing through the room. Disaster does not even start to describe it. World leaders would be confused. America's credibility would collapse. And our enemies would be laughing more than she does. This is not leadership. It is a disaster waiting to happen. Thank God voters saw it before it was too late.
I mean, there's a lot of personal stuff in the book. I mean, poor Dougie.
You're blowing the lid off of Doug? What's going on?
For example, my birthday's in October. The election's in November. You see where I'm going?
Kamala, believe me when I say I have no idea what you're talking about or where you're going. And frankly, I don't think you do either. I think every sentence for Kamala is a bit of a mystery. She doesn't know exactly where she's going to end up or how she'll get there.
And this is the person Sarah Isgar wants us to believe was set up to fail. Please, Kamala Harris did not need anyone sabotaging her. She was a disaster from the very start. Every single year she served as vice president was marked by failure after failure. Remember the border crisis? Biden put her in charge, and she did not even bother to visit it for months. Inflation, crime, foreign policy, mistakes. Kamala was nowhere to be found. Except in staged photo ops and awkward speeches, she failed at every task. Biden gave her showing over and over. She was in way over her head. And let's be honest, her obsession with woke talking points only pushed the American public further away. While hardworking families wanted solutions, she gave slogans. Kamala was not set up to fail. She wrote her own failure line by line. And the voters saw it clearly at the end of the day. Sarah Isgar excuse does not stand. Kamala Harris was not set up by the DNC. She collapsed under the weight of her own failures, from siding with criminals to ignoring the border crisis, from embarrassing word salads to hollow woke pandering. She proved time and again she was not fit for leadership. The American people saw the chaos, the incompetence, and the cackling, and they wanted no part of it. Kamala Harris did not just fail, she represented the failure of an entire party agenda, and voters delivered the verdict. America deserves better than Kamala Harris. And this brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.